Man mocks elderly woman on bus until she says something only his mother knew. David Thompson was running late for another important meeting when the bus stopped on Fifth Avenue. The elderly woman climbed the steps with difficulty, gripping the handrail tightly while balancing a heavy bag. David huffed impatiently, checking his watch for the third time in less than a minute. The driver waited patiently, but David couldn't contain his irritation. "Hurry up, Mrs. Jenkins. This isn't your private elevator," he shouted, making several passengers turn their heads in his direction. The woman, a black lady with graying hair and simple wire-frame glasses, stopped in the middle of the aisle. Her eyes met David's, and for a moment, something passed between them. She walked slowly to where he was sitting, ignoring the other empty seats. "Excuse me, young man," she said calmly, trying to move to the seat beside him. "Oh, come on. Now you want to sit right next to me?" "There are plenty of empty seats, ma'am." David gestured dramatically, his voice echoing through the crowded bus that connected the Upper East Side to downtown. The other passengers watched uncomfortably. A young woman in the back discreetly recorded the scene with her phone. David didn't even notice, too busy humiliating the elderly woman. "The problem is, these old folks think the world should stop for them. They should stay home instead of getting in the way of people who work," he continued, turning to a man beside him as if seeking approval. The woman adjusted her glasses and leaned slightly toward David. Her lips moved, whispering something only he could hear. "Easy now, my peanut. Mama knows you get nervous when you're scared." David froze. The blood drained from his face, leaving him pale as paper. His hands began to tremble violently. Peanut. No one had called him that in over 20 years. It was the nickname only his mother used, and only when he had anxiety attacks as a child. How did you—" he stammered. But the woman had already moved away. She got off at the next stop with the same calm she had entered with, leaving David paralyzed in his seat. The 35-year-old executive, always so confident and arrogant, now shook like a frightened child. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The following days were torture for David. At the consulting firm where he worked as operations director, his assistant Jennifer noticed the drastic change. The man who used to storm into the office like a hurricane, dishing out orders and criticism, now arrived subdued and distracted. "David, you have a meeting with the Japanese investors in 15 minutes, Jennifer reminded him, entering his office. He stood by the window, watching the buses pass below. Every yellow vehicle he saw made his heart race. "Cancel it," he murmured. "Cancel." "David, you've been working on this presentation for 3 months. What's going on?" He turned, and Jennifer was startled by his appearance. Dark circles marked his face, and his usually impeccable beard was unkempt. "Just cancel, Jennifer. Make something up." At home in the luxurious Tribeca apartment, things weren't any better. Emily, his wife of 8 years, tried to understand what was happening. David barely touched his food, stayed up all night and muttered incoherent things in his sleep. "Honey, you need to tell me what's wrong," Emily pleaded one night, sitting beside him on the couch. "Ever since that day you came home from work, you haven't been yourself." David stared at her. How could he explain? How could he explain that a stranger on the bus had whispered words that shook the very foundation of his life? "Emily, do you believe there are things we just can't explain?" "What are you talking about? David, you're scaring me." He ran his hands over his face, feeling the weight of a secret even he didn't understand. His mother, Margaret, had passed away 5 years ago. The nickname Peanut had died with her. Or so he'd thought. The next morning, David made a decision. He took the same bus at the same time. The driver, Mr. Johnson, an older man with a graying mustache, recognized him. "Hey, Doc, you back here again? Thought after that day? Do you remember the elderly woman? The one who got off after I—" David swallowed hard, ashamed as he recalled his behavior. "Mrs. Gertrude. Of course I remember. Poor thing, you were pretty rude to her." "Gertrude? You know her?" "Sure do. She's been taking this bus every day for about 20 years. Always gets off in Bushwick, That old neighborhood near Grand Central Station. David's heart raced. Bushwick, the neighborhood where he'd grown up. The place he'd sworn never to set foot in again after he'd managed to leave. Does she still take this bus? Mr. Johnson scratched his head, thoughtful. Well, haven't seen her in a few days. After that day with you, she disappeared. Hope she didn't get sick. Mrs. Gertrude's a saint. Helps everyone in the neighborhood. David stepped off in Bushwick on shaky legs. The neighborhood had changed in 15 years, but he still recognized the narrow streets, the small houses crammed together, the smell of coffee from the old bakeries. Every step was a journey back to a time he'd tried to forget. The house where he'd grown up was still there, on Maple Street. The blue paint had faded, and the iron gate showed signs of rust. A for sale sign was posted out front. Can I help you? A woman's voice snapped him out of his trance. David turned and saw a woman around 60, her white hair tied in a bun, watching him from the house next door. I lived here as a kid, he managed to say. The woman's face lit up. Oh my God, Danny, is that really you? It's me, Dorothy. I was your neighbor, remember? Memories came flooding back like an avalanche. Mrs. Dorothy, who always had a piece of cake for the kids on the street. Who'd comforted his mother during tough nights when money was tight. Mrs. Dorothy, he murmured, feeling his eyes burn. My boy, how you've grown, and that handsome suit. Your mother would be so proud. God rest her soul. David swallowed the lump in his throat. Do you know why the house is for sale? Dorothy sighed, shaking her head. Old debts, my dear. Your father, God forgive him, left a lot of bills behind before he left. Your mother held on for years, but after she passed. The bank wants to take it. Such a shame, this house has so much history. Mrs. Dorothy, do you know a Gertrude? A black woman, wears glasses, must be around 70? Dorothy's expression changed. Gertrude? Of course I know her. My, it's been so long since anyone asked about her. Why? I need to find her, it's urgent. She still comes here every week. Stands right in front of your old house, just looking. Sometimes she goes into the backyard. Never understood why. She goes into the house? Just the yard. Has an old key. Your mother must have given it to her years ago. They were very close, you know? David felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. His mother had never mentioned any Gertrude. Close? Oh, absolutely. Gertrude worked for your family for years when you were little, but she was more than a maid. She was like a sister to Margaret. They'd spend hours talking in the kitchen. Your mother trusted her more than anyone. The puzzle pieces were starting to come together, but the picture they formed still didn't make sense. David thanked Dorothy and stood still in front of the house, wrestling with his memories. His phone rang insistently. It was Emily. David, where are you? Your secretary called saying you didn't show up at the office again, and Watanabe called furious about the cancelled meeting. I'm taking care of something important. More important than your job. David, you're going to lose everything you've built. He looked at the faded house in front of him, everything he'd built. But at what cost? Emily, I need to tell you something. But not now. When I get back. David, She hesitated. I have something to tell you too, but I need you to come back. We need to talk. He hung up and decided to enter the backyard. The back gate creaked as it opened. The small space was overgrown with weeds, but he could still see the crooked mango tree in the corner. How many afternoons had he spent up there, escaping the harsh reality inside? That's when he saw it. Under a pile of old roof tiles, a rusted metal box. His heart raced as he pulled it out. It was heavy, and the lock had long since given way to rust. Inside were dozens of yellowed envelopes, all addressed to his mother. With trembling hands, he opened the first one. Dear Margaret, thank you for this month's money. I was able to pay for Catherine's school. You can't imagine her joy when she found out she could keep studying. One day, I'll repay everything you've done for us. With love, your friend, Gertrude. David felt his legs weaken. He opened another envelope. Margaret, Catherine got into college. Medicine, just as she always dreamed. I know I owe so much of this to you and your savings. You gave up so much to help my daughter. How can I ever thank you? Forever grateful, Gertrude. Tears now streamed freely down David's face. Letter after letter revealed a story of friendship and sacrifice he'd never known. His mother, who had worked as a seamstress until her fingers bled, who ate less so he could have enough, had secretly paid for Gertrude's daughter's education. His phone rang again. This time, it was Jennifer. "David, I'm sorry to bother you, but Mr. Hiroshi is here. He came in person to demand an explanation for the cancelled meeting. What should I do? Tell him that—" David stopped. He remembered all the times he'd humiliated subordinates, how he'd become exactly the kind of person his mother would have been ashamed of. "Tell him I'll be there in an hour, and Jennifer, thank you for covering for me these past few days." It was the first time in years he'd thanked his secretary. Back downtown, David entered the mirrored building with a different determination. Hiroshi waited in the conference room, visibly irritated. "Thompson-san, this is unacceptable. I flew in from Tokyo for this meeting." "I apologize, Hiroshi-san. I had a family emergency." The Japanese man's expression softened. Family was sacred in his culture. "I hope everything is all right now." "Actually, no, but I'm working on it. Can we reschedule?" After the meeting, David sought out Jennifer. "I need you to find someone for me. Dr. Catherine, probably around 35, a doctor. Daughter of a woman named Gertrude." "That's it?" "David, there are thousands of doctors with that name in the United States. Check public hospitals, probably in the north or east side." "And Jennifer?" "It's really important." Meanwhile, Emily waited at home, pacing back and forth. In her hands was a positive pregnancy test. She'd found out 3 days ago, but with David acting so strangely, she hadn't found the right moment to tell him. The phone rang. It was her mother. "Emily, sweetheart, how are things?" "Complicated, Mom. David is different." "Different how?" "I don't know how to explain it. He was always so focused, so driven. Now he seems lost, searching for something even he doesn't understand." "Sometimes men need to get lost to find themselves, my dear. Be patient." Emily touched her still flat stomach. Patience. But for how long? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 3 days later, Jennifer walked into David's office with a triumphant smile. "I found her. Dr. Catherine Wilson Parker, 34 years old, graduated from Columbia University on a full scholarship. Works at Queens Community Hospital and sees patients through Medicare. Volunteers on weekends at a community center in Bushwick." David felt his heart race. Bushwick again. "Which community center?" "Mother Teresa Community Center on Grace Street. It's 2 blocks from Maple Street. 2 blocks from his childhood home." The circle was closing. The following Saturday, David stood in front of the community center. The simple building, painted in faded yellow, buzzed with activity. Children ran around the courtyard. Elderly folks played dominoes under a tree, and the smell of food wafted from the kitchen. He stepped inside hesitantly. In the makeshift dining hall, dozens of people were eating lunch, and there she was. Gertrude, wearing the same green cardigan from the photo, was serving food with a smile. Beside her, a younger woman in a white coat helped with the distribution. David approached slowly. Gertrude saw him, and for a moment, their eyes met. She didn't seem surprised. "I knew you'd come," she said simply, still serving. "Sit over there. We'll talk when I'm done." He obeyed, sitting on a wooden bench in the corner. He watched Gertrude work, the tenderness in how she treated each person, the care she took to serve generous portions to everyone. It was the same care his mother had shown. An hour later, Gertrude approached, drying her hands on her apron. The woman in the white coat followed. "David, this is my daughter, Catherine." The doctor extended her hand. She had the same kind eyes as her mother. "Nice to meet you. Mom told me about you." "She did?" David was confused. "Let's talk outside," Gertrude suggested. "There's a bench in the garden where we can have some privacy." The garden was small but well kept. They sat under an almond tree, and for a moment, no one spoke. Gertrude broke the silence. "You want to know about the nickname?" How did you know? No one. Only my mom. Gertrude smiled, a smile full of memories. Little David, or rather Peanut, I took care of you from the day you were born. Your mother had to work, and I stayed with you all day. She was the one who taught me how to calm you during your anxiety attacks. Easy, my Peanut, she'd say. Mommy knows you get nervous when you're scared. Tears welled in David's eyes again. But I don't remember you. You were 5 when your family moved to a better apartment. Your mother had gotten a promotion at the clothing factory. You all left and I stayed here. But Margaret never forgot me. Catherine held her mother's hand. Mrs. Jenkins paid for my studies with her savings. Everything I am today, I owe to her. And to my mother, of course. David felt the weight of years of ignorance and arrogance crashing down on him. I never knew. Mom never told me. Because you didn't want to know, Gertrude said gently. Ever since you were a teenager, you were ashamed of where you came from. She respected that, but it hurt her. How many times did I see her cry because you didn't want to bring your private school friends home? Every word was a stab of truth. And on the bus, why did you? Because I saw Margaret in you at that moment. The same anxiety, the same fear disguised as anger. You weren't late for a meeting. You were running from something. I know that look. David lowered his head. She was right. That morning, Emily had mentioned wanting to talk about something important, and he had run away, as he always did, from anything that threatened his carefully constructed world. Your mother wrote to me before she passed, continued Gertrude, pulling an envelope from her pocket. She asked me to give this to you, but only when you were ready. I think that moment has come. With trembling hands, David opened the envelope. His mother's neat handwriting filled his tear-blurred vision. My dear Peanut, if you're reading this, it means you finally found Gertrude. Or rather, you let her find you. I know I spent my whole life protecting you, maybe too much. But a mother does what she can. You were always a sensitive boy, anxious, afraid of the world. That's why I gave you the nickname Peanut. You'd curl up like a peanut when you were scared. I watched you grow and build armor around that fear. I watched you become hard, sometimes cruel because you thought it was the only way to survive. But my son, true strength lies in kindness. Gertrude was more than a friend. She was the sister I chose. Together we raised you and Catherine as if you were siblings. Yes, you played with her when you were little. You shared toys, stories, dreams. When we moved, you had just had a severe anxiety attack. The doctor said you needed a calmer environment. But I also knew you needed to forget for a while, to rebuild your confidence. So I let you forget Gertrude, Catherine, Bushwick. But I never forgot. Every month I saved to help with Catherine's education. It wasn't charity. It was justice. Gertrude cared for you as if you were her own. It was the least I could do. I know you've become successful. I also know you've become the kind of person who humiliates others, who yells at those you consider beneath you. It hurts to write this, but I must. Because that's not you, son. That's just fear speaking louder. Find the Peanut inside you. That gentle boy who shared his lunch with those who were hungry, who cried when he saw someone suffering. He's still there. He just needs permission to come out. Take care of Emily. She's a good woman and loves you despite your flaws. And when you have children, yes, I know you will, teach them that true wealth lies in being able to help others. The house in Bushwick has a story. Your father lost it gambling, but I managed to negotiate with the bank to keep it for years. Now I can't anymore. If you can, save our home. Not for nostalgia, but because it can serve a greater purpose. Gertrude holds the key to my heart, just as she does to the backyard. Trust her as I did, and forgive this mother who may have loved too much and prepared too little. With eternal love, Mom. David was sobbing now, uncaring of the tears. Catherine offered a tissue and Gertrude rubbed his back, just as his mother used to when he was a child. She's right, he managed between sobs. I've become a monster. I humiliate people every day. I yell at subordinates. I treat those I consider beneath me poorly. And Emily is suffering because of it. There's still time to change, Gertrude said softly. How? How do I undo years of... By starting, Catherine interrupted. One day at a time. One person at a time. David looked around. The community center buzzed with life, with purpose. "Do you need help here?" Gertrude smiled. "We always do. But are you sure? It won't be easy." "I'm not sure of anything, but I need to try." When he returned home that night, Emily was waiting in the living room. She'd been crying, he could tell from her swollen eyes. "We need to talk," they said at the same time. They sat on the couch, and David took her hands. "Let me speak first," he said. "I've learned things about myself, about my family, that changed everything. Emily, I've been awful. To you, to the people around me. I've been living with so much fear that I turned that fear into cruelty." Emily listened intently, squeezing his hands. "That woman on the bus, she knew me when I was a child. She took care of me, and I humiliated her without realizing it. But she knew who I was. She saw right through my armor. Emily, I want to change. I need to change." "David," Emily began, but he continued, "I'm going to slow down at work. I'll start volunteering at the community center where she works. I want to buy the house where I grew up and turn it into something useful for the neighborhood. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm pregnant." Emily's words hit him like lightning. David stared at her, processing the news. Pregnant? "I found out a few days ago. I was waiting for the right time to tell you, but you've been acting so strange. David, I was thinking about going to stay with my parents. I don't know if I want to raise a child with someone who yells at elderly people on the bus." The weight of his actions crashed down on David like a ton of bricks. "Emily, no, please. I know I don't deserve it, but give me a chance. Let me prove I can be different. That I can be the man you deserve, the father our child deserves. How can I believe you? David, for years you've grown colder, more distant. Now suddenly you want to change." He stood and went to the drawer where he'd kept his mother's letters. He returned and handed them to Emily. "Read them. Understand who I was, who I became, and who I want to be again." As Emily read, crying at each revelation, David made coffee. It felt strange to do something so simple. He hadn't stepped into the kitchen for anything but water in years. When she finished, she looked at him with teary eyes. "Your mother was an incredible woman, and I let her down in every way." "Not yet. She said she knew you'd have children. We can raise our baby differently. We can teach them kindness, gratitude." "Our baby," David repeated, the reality finally sinking in. "We're having a baby." Emily smiled for the first time in days. "But David, actions, not words, are what will convince me. I need to see real change. You will, I promise." On Monday, David arrived at the office with a different demeanor. Jennifer nearly spilled her coffee when he greeted her with a genuine smile. "Jennifer, could you gather the whole team in the conference room? I need to talk to everyone." "Is something wrong?" "Yes and no. Just get everyone together, please, and thank you." The meeting shocked them all. David, the boss known for his explosive temper, apologized, not with vague words, but by recalling specific moments when he'd humiliated or mistreated each of them. "I know words can't erase the past," he said at the end, "but I hope you'll give me the chance to be a better leader. And if I fall back into old habits, please call me out." The room was silent. It was Daniel, the junior analyst David had reduced to tears the week before, who spoke first. "Mr. Thompson, we all respect your skills. If you're willing to change, we're willing to give you that chance." The others agreed, some still wary but willing to wait and see. In the weeks that followed, the transformation was gradual but steady. David cut back his hours, delegated more, and treated everyone with respect. Surprisingly, the team's productivity rose. On Saturdays, he went to the community center. At first, Gertrude put him on dish duty. "Humility starts at the bottom," she said with a smile. David, who hadn't washed a dish in decades, accepted the challenge. His soft hands soon grew rough, but there was something therapeutic about the manual labor. Over time, he graduated to serving meals, then helping with organization. He heard life stories that made him rethink everything he thought he knew about success and failure. There was Mr. Johnson, a former executive like him, who had lost everything in the economic crisis and now relied on meals from the community center. Mrs. Jenkins, a retired teacher who donated her time teaching children to read. Pedro, a talented young man who couldn't afford college. "Why don't we create a scholarship program?" David suggested one day to Catherine. "With what money? We can barely keep the food coming." "Leave it to me." David approached the bank about the house in Bushwick. The debts were substantial, but not impossible for someone with his salary. But there was a problem. His savings were all tied up in long-term investments. It was Emily who offered the solution. "Let's use the money we saved to renovate the apartment. We can wait another year." "Emily, I can't ask that of you." "You're not asking, I'm offering. That house has history, it has purpose. Our apartment can wait." Together they went to the bank. The manager, surprised to see David Thompson interested in a modest house in Bushwick, tried to convince him to invest in something more profitable. "It's not an investment," David explained. "It's restitution." With the house purchased, the real work began. David rallied his office team for a volunteer project. Surprised but curious, many agreed to help. During the renovation, they discovered things hidden in the walls. Old photos, including one of David as a child with a girl he now recognized as Catherine. They were hugging, smiling, sharing an ice pop. "How could I forget?" he murmured. "The mind protects in strange ways," said Catherine, who was overseeing the transformation of the house into an extension of the community center. The project grew. Business people David knew, moved by the story, began donating. The house became a space for tutoring, vocational courses, and free counseling. One Saturday afternoon, while painting a wall, David heard a familiar voice. "Thompson?" "David Thompson." It was Hiroshi, the Japanese investor, dressed casually. "Hiroshi-san, what brings you here?" "I heard about your project. I came to see it. In Japan, we have a saying, Nana korobi ya oki. Fall 7 times, rise 8. You impress me. I'm just trying to fix past mistakes." "No, you're building the future. My company would like to sponsor scholarships for young people here." Generosity bred more generosity. Soon, the center in Bushwick became a model, receiving visits from social workers across the city. But not everything was smooth sailing. At work, some clients didn't like David's new approach. One of them, Richard Coleman, owner of a major retail chain, was blunt. "Thompson, you've gone soft. I need someone with a firm hand, not a social worker." "Mr. Coleman, I can be firm without being cruel. I can lead without humiliation." "Nonsense. The business world is for sharks, not minnows." David lost that account, but curiously he gained others, companies that valued his new, more humane and sustainable management style. At home, he followed every stage of Emily's pregnancy. He attended every appointment, read about child development, and lovingly prepared the nursery. "You've really changed," Emily said one night, rubbing her now prominent belly. "I still have a lot to improve. But you're on the right path. You know what amazes me most? You're lighter. You smile more. You even look younger." It was true. The constant weight of anger and fear had lessened. David still had difficult moments when his old self tried to resurface, but now he had the tools to handle it. Gertrude became a constant presence in their lives. Emily adored her, and together they prepared the baby's layette. "It's going to be a girl," Gertrude said one day, touching Emily's belly. "How do you know? We haven't had the ultrasound yet." "Experience. I've held many children in these arms. Girls settle differently." She was right. Margaret, named after her grandmother, was born on a rainy October morning. David cried as he hadn't since childhood when he held his daughter for the first time. "Hi, my little peanut," he whispered. "Daddy's going to take care of you." At the hospital, a surprise, Catherine was the pediatrician on duty. "The world really is small," she laughed, examining the baby. "She's perfect, strong like her great-grandmother." "Great-grandmother?" Emily was confused. "In my heart, Mrs. Margaret was my grandmother too," explained Catherine, "and Gertrude was the sister she chose. So, in a way, we're family." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, The months flew by. David divided his time between work, family, and the community center. Little Margaret grew up surrounded by love, not just from her parents, but from the entire community her father had embraced. One Sunday afternoon, as David served lunch at the center, a well-dressed woman walked in. He nearly dropped the ladle when he recognized her. It was Barbara, his former boss from the first company he'd worked for, the woman he'd left without notice when he got a better offer. "David, is that really you?" He swallowed hard. Barbara had been like a mentor, and he'd simply vanished, giving no explanation, lured by a higher salary. "Mrs. Barbara, I heard about your work here. I came to see for myself." She looked around, watching the families eating lunch, the children playing. "I never imagined. Mrs. Barbara, I owe you an apology. What I did to you..." She raised her hand. "It's in the past. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do afterward. Can I help serve?" They worked side by side in silence for a while. Later, as they cleaned the tables, Barbara said, "You know, David, I always saw potential in you, but I also saw blind ambition. It hurt when you left like that, but maybe it was necessary. You needed that path to get here. You're too kind. No, I'm practical. My company is developing a social responsibility program. I need someone to lead it, someone who understands both sides." "Interested?" David stopped wiping the table. "Lead? But I already have a job. It would be consulting, part-time, enough for you to keep your current work and still help here, but with a bigger reach. We could replicate this model in other communities. It was a golden opportunity. The old David would have accepted on the spot, already calculating the benefits. The new David thought of his family, his commitment to the center. "I need to talk to my wife. And Gertrude." Barbara smiled. "That answer alone tells me you're the right person. No rush. The offer stands." That night at home, David told Emily about the encounter. Margaret slept in his arms, making small, contented sounds. "What do you think?" asked Emily. "I think your mother would be proud. It's a chance to multiply the good, but only if it doesn't hurt what we've already built. You know what impresses me most about you now?" Emily stroked her husband's face. "You weigh things. You think of others. Before, you would have accepted without even consulting me. Before, I was a fool. You were lost. Now you're finding yourself." The next morning, David sought out Gertrude at the center. She was in the kitchen, preparing the beans for lunch. "I came to ask your advice," he said, and told her about the offer. Gertrude kept stirring the beans, thoughtful. "Remember what your mother wrote? About true wealth being in helping others?" "I do." "Then you already know the answer. The question isn't whether to accept, but how to do it without losing your essence." "How do you always know what to say?" "Experience, my son. And because I knew the best teacher, your mother." David accepted the offer, but with conditions. He would continue his normal work, dedicate 2 days a week to the new project, and all the knowledge would be shared freely with other communities. The project grew beyond expectations. Within a year, 3 new centers had opened in different neighborhoods, each with its own identity, but following the model of dignity and respect that began in Bushwick. One Saturday morning, David was at the original center when he heard an argument at the gate. A man in a suit was yelling at the security guard, demanding to come in and speak to the person in charge. "What's the problem?" David approached. The man turned, and David felt his blood run cold. It was Michael, his former business partner, the one he had betrayed years ago in a deal, taking all the profits from a project they had developed together. "David," Michael looked visibly shocked. "You here?" "Michael." David took a deep breath. Another ghost from the past. "Come in. Let's talk." In the small makeshift office, the two sat face to face. Michael was visibly shaken, his suit wrinkled, his eyes red. "I lost everything," he said bluntly. "The business that we built, it grew, then collapsed. My wife left me. I'm staying with friends. I heard you help people here." The irony was sharp. The man he had wronged was now asking for his help. "Michael, what I did to you was wrong. Unforgivable. You destroyed me. I trusted you. I know, and I know apologies don't pay the bills. What can I do now?" Michael laughed bitterly. "Do? Can you undo the last 5 years? Can you give me back my family?" "No, but I can try to help you build the next 5. David called Catherine, who coordinated the job reintegration program. Together they put together a plan. Michael had skills. He just needed a chance to start over. "Why are you doing this?" Michael asked after the meeting. "Because someone gave me a chance when I didn't deserve it. Several people, actually. I'm just passing it on." Emily was pregnant again, this time with a boy. The name choice was unanimous. Daniel, in honor of the grandfather David barely knew, but whom Gertrude had described as a hard-working man who had only lost his way at the end of his life. "Everyone deserves to be remembered for their best," she said. Life moved at a new pace. David had found a balance he never imagined possible. His work was going well, without the destructive pressure of before. His family grew in love and closeness. The community center had become a national model. One afternoon, Jennifer walked into his office with a strange expression. "David, there's a woman here to see you. She says it's about the bus." David's heart raced. Could it be Gertrude? But she had his number. She wouldn't need to come to the office. The woman who entered was young, maybe 25. She clutched her phone nervously. "Mr. Thompson, my name is Amanda. I recorded that day. On the bus." David's stomach twisted. The video. He had forgotten someone had filmed his humiliation of Gertrude. "The video went viral," Amanda continued. "Millions of views. People wanted to know who the arrogant man was. Some figured it out. And you came to blackmail me." The old defensiveness tried to surface. "No," Amanda looked horrified. "I came to apologize for recording, for posting. I never imagined that." "That what?" "That you would change so much. I saw the work at the center, I read the articles. My mum volunteers at one of the new centers. She's always talking about the David Thompson model. I wanted to delete the video, but I can't anymore. But I can record another." "Another?" "Showing who you are now, the transformation. People love redemption stories. It could inspire others," David thought. The exposure scared him, but if it could help. "Let's do it differently," he said. "We'll film at the center, but the focus isn't me. It's Gertrude. It's her story, my mother's story, and the story of all the people who made this change possible." When the video was posted, it got even more views than the original. But now, the comments were different. People shared their own stories of transformation, regret, and new beginnings. Business owners reached out to David, wanting to replicate the model. Schools requested talks. Invitations for TV shows came daily. "Fame again?" Emily joked. "Not fame. Responsibility," David corrected. "Every story I tell can change a life, just like mine was changed." Margaret, now 2 years old, ran around the center as if it were her home. And in a way, it was. There, she learned values no expensive school could teach. "Daddy, why isn't Grandma Gertrude my real grandma?" she asked one day. David knelt to her level. "There are grandmas by blood and grandmas by heart. Grandma Gertrude is a grandma by heart, and that's the most special kind. So I have 2 grandmas by heart? Her and Grandma Margaret in heaven? Exactly, my peanut, you're doubly blessed." At a board meeting, the company president made a surprise announcement. David Thompson will be our new VP of Corporate Social Responsibility. The promotion came with a much higher salary, but David no longer measured success that way. He measured it in the smiles of fed children, in young people entering college, in families rebuilt. "I accept on one condition," he said. 30% of the raise goes straight to the center's scholarship fund. 30%, David, that's a lot of money. It's an investment in the future I want for my kids. Michael, his former partner, had gotten back on his feet. He found a modest but honest job, partially reconciled with his family. One Sunday, he showed up at the center with a small donation. "It's not much," he said, embarrassed. "It's everything," David replied. Every gesture counts. Years passed. Daniel was born healthy, a cheerful boy who won everyone over. The original center expanded, now taking up the whole block. David's childhood home became a living museum, where children learned about the neighborhood's history. Catherine became one of the city's most respected doctors, known for never turning away those who couldn't pay. Her private practice operated on a sliding scale. Those who could afford it paid more to subsidize those who couldn't. "I learned from the best," she said, referring to her mother and Margaret. Gertrude, now almost 80, remained active. Her hands weren't as steady when serving food, but her smile lit up the room as always. One special afternoon, the center welcomed a Japanese delegation. Hiroshi had brought investors interested in expanding the model internationally. "In Japan, we call this ikigai," he explained. "A reason for living. You've found yours." During the celebration dinner, David was called to speak. He looked around. Emily holding Daniel, Margaret playing with other children, Gertrude chatting with Catherine, Michael helping serve, Jennifer coordinating volunteers. His life, rebuilt piece by piece. "Years ago, a woman told me something on a bus that changed my life. She called me by a nickname only my mother knew. At that moment, I could have ignored it, continued my life of arrogance and emptiness. But something broke in me, or rather something opened." He paused, seeing Gertrude smile. "I discovered I'd lived so afraid of being vulnerable that I became cruel. I discovered my mother, who I thought I knew, was a giant I'd never seen. I discovered true strength lies in serving, not dominating." Applause filled the room, but David wasn't finished. "Everyone here has a story of transformation. Michael, who forgave me when I didn't deserve it. Jennifer, who endured years of rudeness and still gave me a chance. Emily, who saw potential when I was just a shell. Catherine, who taught me that success without purpose is failure. And Gertrude," his voice caught. "Gertrude, who kept the best of me when I had forgotten it myself. Who gave me back my nickname, my story, my humanity." Gertrude rose with difficulty and walked to him. They embraced for a long time amid emotional applause. "My peanut has grown," she whispered. "Thanks to you. Thanks to all of us." Later at home, David was putting the children to bed. Margaret insisted on the story about the grandma in heaven. "Daddy, is Grandma Margaret proud of you?" "I hope so, sweetheart. I'm sure she is. You help people just like she did." From the other room, Daniel began to cry. Emily went to comfort him, leaving father and daughter alone. "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to be like you." David felt his eyes well up. "No, my peanut. Be better. Be like your Grandma Margaret and your Granny Gertrude. They're the real role models. Then I want to be like everyone together. That's the spirit." After the children fell asleep, David and Emily sat on the porch. The city glowed in the distance, full of stories of people needing a chance, a kind gesture. "What are you thinking about?" Emily asked. "How a bus ride changed everything. If I hadn't been rude to Gertrude, but you were. And she had the wisdom to turn your worst moment into an opportunity for change. A mother's wisdom. The best ones always do." David's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Saw the video about the community center. I'm a CEO of a multinational and admit I saw myself in the man you were. Is there still hope for me? How do I start?" David smiled. "Another journey beginning." He replied, "There's always hope. Start by apologizing to someone you've hurt. The rest comes naturally." Emily read over his shoulder. "You've become what your mother always knew you could be." "Took me long enough." "You arrived right on time. Margaret and Daniel will have the father you wish you'd had. And they'll have the grandmothers I had but didn't see." The next day, David woke early as usual. But now waking didn't bring anxiety and anger. It brought purpose. At the center, he found Gertrude already in the kitchen preparing coffee. At 80, she refused to stop. "Good morning, Peanut." "Good morning, Mrs. Gertrude. Let me help." They worked in comfortable silence, preparing for another day of service. Soon, the volunteers would arrive, the families needing help, the children for their classes. "You know," Gertrude said while slicing bread, "your mother always said you'd come back." Come back? Home. Not to a physical place, but to who you really are. She had unshakable faith in you. I didn't deserve that faith. Son, faith isn't about deserving. It's about loving beyond what's visible. The morning passed in familiar rhythm. David served coffee, talked with people, listened to stories. Every face was a reminder of why the change was worth it. Around noon, an official car stopped outside the center. David feared the worst, some bureaucratic complication, but out stepped the mayor, flanked by aides. Mr. Thompson, I came to see your work firsthand and to bring news. Of course, Mr. Mayor. The city has decided to adopt your model as public policy. We want a center like this in every district, and we'd like you to coordinate the project. David looked at Gertrude, who smiled serenely. I accept, as long as it's a joint effort. I'll coordinate, but Mrs. Gertrude and her daughter Catherine are the real experts. Of course, it'd be an honor to have them involved. After the mayor left, the center erupted in celebration. The model born from a mother's love and a friend's wisdom would multiply across the city. That night there was a special celebration. David went to his old childhood bedroom, now transformed into a reading room for the children. On the walls, photos told the story of the place. His young mother, Gertrude with baby Catherine, himself as a child. Margaret found her father there, looking at the photos. Daddy, are you sad? No, sweetheart. Daddy is happy. These are tears of joy. Why? Because it took me a long time to understand, but I finally realized that love was always here, waiting for me to come back. Love waits? Love always waits, my peanut. Always. Emily appeared at the door with Daniel in her arms. The party is waiting for you. David picked up Margaret and hugged his family. You know what my mother would say if she were here? What? Asked Emily. That true wealth is being able to hug the ones we love and knowing we've made a difference in someone's life. Then we're millionaires, said Margaret with the innocent wisdom of children. Billionaires, corrected David, kissing his daughter's forehead. They went down to the party. The center overflowed with life, music, and joy. Gertrude was sitting in a special chair, receiving affection from everyone. David approached and held her hand. Thank you, he said simply. For what, my son? For giving me back to myself. I only showed you the way. You chose to walk it. The music started and Margaret pulled her father to dance. As they twirled, David saw Michael talking animatedly with potential employers. He saw Catherine tending to a child who had gotten hurt while playing. He saw Emily organizing the food line with loving efficiency. You know, Margaret, he told his daughter, there's something I've learned. What, Daddy? That sometimes we need to get completely lost to truly find ourselves. I don't ever want to get lost. You don't have to, my love. You have something I didn't have for a long time. What? People who won't let you get lost. And if it happens, they'll be there to help you come home. The party went on late into the night. At the end, when only the closest remained, Gertrude asked for attention. I have an announcement. I'm old, but not foolish. I know my time here is limited, so I want to leave everything in order. Mrs. Gertrude, don't talk like that, protested David. Let me finish, Peanut. Catherine will take over the medical coordination of the centers. David, the administrative side. Emily, the educational. Each with your talents united by the same purpose. And you? Asked Emily. Me? I'll keep doing what I've always done. Loving you all and making coffee. The best coffee in Bushwick. They laughed through tears. Life, David had learned, was like this, a mix of joy and longing, of victories and losses, of goodbyes and reunions. 2 years later, on the day the 10th Community Center was inaugurated, Gertrude passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 82 and left a legacy that would touch generations. The wake was held at the original center. Thousands came to pay their respects. The mayor declared official mourning. But more than the official honors, it was the personal stories that moved everyone. Each person had a tale of how Gertrude had changed their life. With a plate of food, a kind word, a hug at the right time. David spoke at the funeral. Gertrude taught me there is no transformation without forgiveness, no growth without humility, no love without service. She could have left me in my arrogance that day on the bus, but she chose to rescue me with 5 words only my mother would say. Today, I promise those words will keep echoing through our work. Easy, my peanut. Mama knows. Catherine, crying but strong, vowed to continue her mother's legacy. The centers were officially named the Margaret and Gertrude Network, forever uniting the 2 women who had changed so many lives. 5 years passed. Margaret, now 7, fluently read her grandmother's old letters. Daniel, at 5 years old, helped serve juice at the community center events. A 3rd child was on the way. What should we name them? Jennifer asked one evening. If it's a girl, Gertrude. If it's a boy. Peanut, Jennifer joked. Heaven forbid. 1 peanut in the family was enough. They laughed, watching the children play in the yard, the same yard where David had found the letters that changed everything. You know, Jennifer said, sometimes I think about that woman on the bus. What would our lives be like if she hadn't spoken? David hugged his wife. I'd rather not imagine. Probably rich, successful, and completely miserable. And now? Now I'm truly rich. Rich in love, purpose, family, community. And work, Jennifer laughed. Managing 20 centers is no joke. 20 and counting. The model's already being replicated in other states. Would your mother have imagined this? I think so. She always saw further than any of us. Margaret came running back from the yard. Daddy, I found another letter. It was buried near the hose. David took the dusty envelope. His mother's handwriting, but addressed to my grandchild. Is it for me? Margaret beamed. Looks like it, sweetheart. Carefully, they opened the envelope. The letter was preserved, as if waiting for the right moment. Dear grandchild, if you're reading this, it means your father found his way back home. Not the physical home, but the home of the heart. I won't meet you in person, but I know you'll be special. You'll have the best of both worlds. Your father's strength and your mother's wisdom. You'll have aunts of the heart in Gertrude and Catherine. You'll have a whole community looking after you. Teach your father to play. He's forgotten how. Teach your mother to rest. She cares too much for others. Teach each other that love is the only wealth that matters. Here's a secret. Your father was called Peanut because he'd curl up when scared. But do you know what happens to a peanut? Planted in good soil, it grows into a strong, tall tree, giving shade and fruit to many. Your father became that tree, and you're one of its sweetest fruits. With love across time, Grandma Margaret. Margaret hugged the letter to her chest. Daddy's a tree? Metaphorically, yes. David laughed, wiping tears. What's metaphorically? Metaphorically. It means a poetic way of saying things. So I'm a coconut? You're my little peanut. Different from Daddy's nickname, but with the same love. Life went on. The centers thrived. Little Gertrude was born, completing the family. David never boarded a bus without remembering that fateful day, but now the memory came with gratitude, not shame. One ordinary morning, 15 years after the bus encounter, David got an unexpected call. Mr. Thompson, this is the production team for Life-Changing Encounters. We'd like to share your story. It's been told many times, but never with all the participants. We found the bus driver, the woman who filmed it, several witnesses, and of course we want to honor Mrs. Gertrude. David thought it over. The exposure still unsettled him, but if it could inspire others, I'll talk to my family. The decision was unanimous. The story needed telling, not for ego, but for hope. The show was filmed at the original center. Mr. Johnson, the now retired driver, recalled the day in detail. Amanda, the young woman who'd filmed it, now worked in social projects, inspired by the transformation she'd witnessed. Michael shared his testimony on forgiveness and second chances. But the most moving moment was when Catherine read an unpublished letter from Gertrude, written just before she passed. If you're reading this, my story is being told. But it's not my story. It's ours. It belongs to every mother who sees beyond her child's flaws, to every friend who keeps secrets and memories, to every person who chooses love over judgment. David wasn't my transformation project. He was my heart's son coming home. Each of us has the power to be someone's moment of change, sometimes with grand gestures, sometimes with 5 words whispered on a bus, Don't wait for the perfect moment. Act with love now. The world needs more people willing to see beyond appearances, to forgive the unforgivable, to love the seemingly unlovable. And remember, every peanut can grow into a coconut tree. Just plant it in the good soil of love and water it with patience. With eternal love, Gertrude. The program aired on a Sunday night. The impact went beyond any expectation. It wasn't just views or likes. It was stories of people seeking reconciliation, business owners rethinking priorities, communities organizing to create their own centers. Margaret, now a teenager, started a school project called Words That Transform, teaching young people about the power of kindness. Daniel became a junior volunteer, coordinating activities for children. Little Gertrude, at 8 years old, already showed the same serene wisdom as her namesake. "Dad," Margaret said one afternoon as they helped at the center, "do you think everyone has a bus moment?" "A bus moment?" "Yeah, a moment when everything can change depending on how we respond." David stopped sweeping and looked at his daughter, amazed by her insight. "I think so, but many let it pass." "Why?" "Fear, pride, distraction, 1,000 reasons." "You almost let it pass." "Almost, but your grandmother Gertrude didn't let me." "Then we need to be like her. Not let people miss their bus moment." His daughter's teenage wisdom filled him with pride. The new generation understood intuitively what had taken him decades to learn. That evening, during family dinner, Emily made an announcement. "I got an offer. The university wants me to lead a social management course based on our model." "Emily, that's amazing," David said excitedly. "But it means less time at the centers." "Mom, you'll teach more people to do what we do," Daniel argued. "It's multiplication." "Out of the mouths of children," Emily smiled. "Take it, love." Gertrude would say knowledge kept is knowledge wasted. The decision was made. Another expansion of the legacy. On the 20th anniversary of the bus encounter, a grand celebration was held. The 50 centers across the country connected virtually. Thousands of transformed lives shared their stories. David, now gray-haired but young at heart, took the stage at the original center. 20 years ago, I was a broken man who didn't know it. I thought success was a bank account and an important title. I humiliated a woman on a bus because I thought I was superior. She could have retaliated, could have ignored me. But she saw me. Not the arrogant executive, but the scared boy still living inside me. With 5 words, she started a revolution, not just in my life, but in thousands of lives. He paused, seeing the attentive faces, many in tears. "Today I invite each of you to be an agent of change. Don't wait for a dramatic moment. Sometimes change starts with a sincere, good morning, with holding a door, with listening to someone who needs to speak. Be the Gertrude in someone's life." The speech was interrupted by applause, but David wasn't finished. "And now I'd like to do something I should have done 20 years ago." He stepped off the stage and walked to a woman seated in the front row. It was Mrs. Jenkins, the late driver, Mr. Johnson's wife, representing her husband. "Mrs. Jenkins, your husband had patience with me that day. He could have kicked me off the bus, but he didn't. Thank you." Then he went to Amanda. "You recorded my worst moment, but you also made my best possible. Thank you." One by one, he thanked everyone who had been part of that journey. Finally, he stopped before a large portrait of Gertrude. "And to you, my second mother, my savior, I promise. As long as I have breath in me, your message of love will keep echoing. Every center, every transformed life, every act of kindness will be a whisper from you saying, 'Be calm, my child. Love knows what it's doing.'" The celebration continued into the night. Generations mingled, united by the invisible thread of service and love. Margaret played the guitar, Daniel led games, and little Gertrude handed out flowers she had made herself. When the party ended and only the family remained, David went up to the old room. Emily found him there, gazing at the sky through the window. "What are you thinking about?" "How the universe conspires when we choose love." Mom saved up to help Catherine study. Catherine became a doctor. How many lives did she save? Gertrude saved me from arrogance. How many people have been touched by this chain? It's the butterfly effect of good, and it keeps going. Margaret is already planning to expand internationally. Daniel wants to create an app to connect volunteers. Gertrude talks about studying psychology to work in the centers. Our children go beyond us, as it should be, each generation a step higher. Emily hugged her husband from behind. Proud? Grateful. Deeply grateful. David's phone vibrated, a message from an international number. Mr. Thompson, I'm the director of an NGO in South Africa. I saw the documentary about your work. Our reality is different, but the principle is universal. Could you guide us? Another bus moment, David smiled. Reply tomorrow. Today is for celebrating how far we've come. You're right. Tomorrow we start a new chapter. They walked downstairs hand in hand. In the backyard, under the same mango tree that had witnessed his childhood, the family gathered, 3 generations united by choices of love. Dad, tell the bus story again, little Gertrude begged. Again? You already know it by heart. But I love hearing it. It makes me believe everyone can change. David sat on the grass, surrounded by his children. Emily settled beside him. Under the stars, he began once more. It was an ordinary morning, and I was running late. The story flowed familiar yet always new, because it wasn't just about a man and a woman on a bus. It was about love's redemptive power, about second chances, about the courage to change. When he finished, Gertrude asked, Daddy, what if Grandma Gertrude hadn't talked to you? Then my peanut, I wouldn't be who I am. You might not even exist, and thousands of people wouldn't have found help. Wow. So 5 words changed the world? 5 words spoken with love at the right time, yes. Margaret picked up the guitar again. I'll write a song about it. 5 words. What do you think? I think it's perfect, said Emily. As Margaret strummed the first notes, David closed his eyes. He could feel the presence of his mother, of Gertrude, of all the souls who had made that moment possible. The frightened little boy, Peanut, had become a man who expanded in love. The journey had been long, painful at times, but every step had been worth it. You know, Daniel said suddenly, I think everyone should have a Grandma Gertrude. Everyone does, David replied. Sometimes they're on a bus, sometimes on a street corner, sometimes right beside us. We just need eyes to see and a heart to receive. Margaret's song took shape, soft and hopeful. The family sang along, off-key but harmonious in purpose. That night, David dreamed. He was on the bus again, but this time there was no hurry or anger. Gertrude was there, young and smiling. His mother, too, radiant with pride. We did it, didn't we, Peanut? Margaret said in the dream. Did what, Mom? Planted you in good soil. Look at all the fruit you've borne. He woke with his face wet with happy tears. Emily slept peacefully beside him. Through the window, the first rays of sunlight announced a new day. He got up quietly and went to the kitchen. He made coffee, just as Gertrude had taught him. Strong but not bitter, sweet but not cloying, balanced. One by one, the family woke up, drawn by the aroma. They sat together for breakfast, a tradition they kept religiously. What's on the agenda today? Asked Emily. Meeting with the South Africa team at 9 a.m., visit to the new center at 11, lunch with the volunteers, afternoon with the kids from the reading program. Just a normal day then, Margaret teased. Deliciously normal, David agreed. After breakfast, everyone went their separate ways. Margaret to school, where she led the student council with social projects, Daniel to soccer practice, where he collected food for the centers. Gertrude to the little school, where she was already teaching other children about kindness. Emily and David left together, as they had for years. Forever? She asked, taking his hand. Forever, he confirmed. On the bus, yes, he had gone back to riding the bus. He greeted the driver, helped an elderly woman with her groceries, and gave up his seat for a young man on crutches. Small gestures, seeds planted. Who knew how many Gertrudes they were raising at that very moment? How many peanuts were waiting to grow into mighty trees? His phone rang. It was Catherine. David, I have news. Remember Michael? Of course. What happened? He just donated a substantial amount to the scholarship fund, said he could finally give back. Michael did that. And there's more, he wants to volunteer. Said he learned money without purpose is just paper. David smiled. Another life transformed, another circle completed. Gertrude would be proud. She is proud. They never really leave, do they? They live on in every little thing we do. It was true. Gertrude lived in every meal served with love, every kind word, every second chance offered. Margaret lived in every young person who gained access to education, every mother who received support, every family reunited. At the center, the routine was busy but joyful. David was no longer the executive who barked orders. He was the helper who asked, "How can I serve?" During lunch, a new volunteer approached shyly. "Mr. David, can I tell you something?" "Of course, have a seat." "I used to be a bank manager. I fired people to meet quotas. One day, I saw the documentary about you, about how you changed. I thought if he could do it, so can I. I quit, simplified my life, and now I'm happy serving here." "What's your name?" "Gertrude. My parents chose it because of your story." David swallowed his emotion. The name kept multiplying blessings. "Welcome, Gertrude. May you carry that name with the same greatness as the original." The afternoon passed with children's laughter, shared stories, and problems solved with creativity and love. It wasn't work. It was life in its fullest expression. At the end of the day, David took his usual walk through the neighborhood. Every street told a story. Every house held a memory. Bushwick had changed, but its soul remained. He stopped in front of the old house, now fully part of the center. On the entrance plaque, the words read, "Margaret and Gertrude House, where love transforms lives." "We did it, Mom," he murmured. "Your house became a home for so many." A child ran past, laughing. His parents followed close behind, carrying bags from the center's community market. Normal life, dignified life, possible life. His phone showed dozens of messages, requests for guidance, speaking invitations, partnership proposals. The movement was growing organically, touching lives in places David had never imagined reaching. He answered a few urgent ones, left others for later. He'd learned that not everything had to be done yesterday. Sometimes the right time came slowly. On his way home, he stopped at the flower shop. Dorothy, now very old but still active, greeted him. "The usual flowers, David." "The usual, Mrs. Dorothy." "Daisies for Emily, sunflowers for the kids. And for Gertrude, white lilies for the memorial. Every week the same ritual. Flowers for the living, memories for those who've passed." At home, he was greeted with the usual joy. The kids competed to share the day's news. Emily organized dinner while patiently listening to each story. "Dad, guess what?" Margaret beamed. "The song 5 Words was chosen for the school festival. Congratulations, my peanut. Gertrude would have been so moved. I'll dedicate it to her and Grandma Margaret." During dinner, conversation flowed naturally. There was no tension, competition, or pressure. Just a family sharing life. "You know what I noticed today?" said Daniel. "At the center, no one asks what you used to be. It only matters who you are now and who you want to become." "Wisdom at 15. Emily ruffled her son's hair. "That's what Grandma Gertrude always said." Little Gertrude remembered. "The past is a teacher, not a prison." David marveled at his children. Each had absorbed the lessons in their own way, creating their unique version of service and love. After dinner, the family routine. Margaret played guitar, Daniel helped Gertrude with homework, Emily and David talked on the porch. "Tired?" Emily asked. "Fulfilled. It's different. 20 years ago, you'd come home exhausted and irritable. Because I wasted energy on the wrong things, competing, accumulating, trying to prove something to who knows who. And now? Now I use my energy to build. Each day adds another brick to the legacy." Legacy, big word. Big life. Thanks to you for sticking through the transition. Not every wife would have had the patience. Emily held his hand. "I saw your potential, like Gertrude did, like your mother always knew. Sometimes loving means waiting for someone to find their way. What if I hadn't found it? But you did, and that's what matters." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. The city pulsed in the distance, full of unfolding stories, lives intersecting, bus moments waiting to happen. David's phone buzzed. Another international message. Mr. Thompson, the center we opened following your model has already served 1,000 families in 6 months. Thank you for sharing the light. I never stop being moved, he confessed, and you shouldn't. The day it becomes routine, the magic's gone. Emily? Yes? Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on yourself. They went inside to sleep. Another full day, more lives touched, more love multiplied. That night, David woke with an epiphany. He got up carefully and went to his office. He began writing, "The Bus Moment Handbook, How to Transform Lives with Small Gestures." He wrote for hours, pouring out years of experience and learning. It wasn't a book about him, but about the power each person has to be an agent of change. When Emily woke, she found him still writing. New mission? I think so. A practical guide to help people recognize and create moments of transformation. Gertrude would have loved it. That's why I'm writing it, so her wisdom can reach places even our centers can't. The following months were dedicated to the book. David wrote before work at dawn. Margaret illustrated with thoughtful drawings. Daniel created charts and infographics. Little Gertrude contributed kids' tips. Emily edited with care. When it was done, they didn't seek a commercial publisher. They made it freely available online and printed copies to distribute at the centers. The response surpassed all expectations. Millions of downloads, volunteer translations into dozens of languages, study groups forming spontaneously. But most important were the stories. People sharing their own bus moments, transformations sparked by simple gestures, lives redirected by the right words at the right time. At the official launch, held simultaneously across all centers, David made a point of including one special detail. On the first page, a photo of Gertrude and Margaret embracing, with the caption, "To the 2 women who taught me that love never gives up." Catherine read excerpts from the book, interspersed with memories of her mother. Emotions ran high when she reached the chapter about the power of words. 5 words changed my life, but it wasn't the words themselves, it was the love behind them, the courage of someone who chose to look beyond the surface. We all have that power. To whisper hope when someone expects only judgment, to offer kindness when the world offers harshness, to be the turning point in someone's story. Tearful applause echoed in every center. The book became a working tool, a guide for conduct, a daily inspiration. A public school teacher created the Bus Moments in the Classroom project. A business owner established Transformative Kindness Day at his company. An entire community embraced the philosophy, creating a mutual support network. "It's a movement," Emily marveled one evening. "It's Gertrude," David corrected, her wisdom spreading the way she always spread it, with simplicity and love. On what would have been Gertrude's 85th birthday, a surprise, the mayor announced that the main square in Bushwick would be renamed Gertrude Wilson Memorial Square. The ceremony was simple but moving. Thousands of people whose lives she had touched attended, each carrying a white flower, transforming the square into a garden. Catherine unveiled the plaque with the inscription, "Gertrude Wilson Memorial Square, where every act of love echoes in eternity." Margaret, now a college student studying music and social therapy, sang 5 words, accompanied by a choir of children from the centers. Not a single dry eye remained in the crowd. David was invited to speak. He stepped onto the small stage and looked at the crowd, familiar and unfamiliar faces, all united by the same gratitude. Gertrude used to say there's no such thing as a small gesture when it's done with great love. Today, seeing all of you, I understand that deeply. Every person here is living proof that love transforms, that 5 words can start a revolution, that it's never too late to change, nor too early to begin. He pointed to the simple yet touching statue of Gertrude serving food, unveiled at the center of the square. She's still serving, through every one of us. And as long as there's someone who needs to hear, "Hush now, child, love knows what it's doing," Gertrude will be alive. The celebration continued with cultural performances, a craft fair featuring works from the centers, and of course, the traditional food distribution. It was Gertrude in every detail, simple, welcoming, nourishing for body and soul. That evening, the Thompson family gathered in the square. Sitting in a circle, they shared memories and dreams. "When I grow up," said little Gertrude, now 10, "I want to open centers in other countries, spread Grandma Gertrude's love all over the world. I want to create social technology," added Daniel, "apps that connect those in need with those who can help. And I want to use music to heal trauma," Margaret finished, "like Grandma Gertrude healed Dad's." David and Emily exchanged emotional glances. The next generation was already surpassing their expectations. "What about you, Mum and Dad?" Daniel asked. "What are your next dreams?" Emily went first. "I want to train 1,000 social managers in the next 5 years, build an army of good." "And you, Dad?" David thought. At 55, he felt he was just getting started. "I want to grow old serving, to do something every day that justifies the gift I received 25 years ago on a bus. And when my time comes, I want to leave knowing the world is a little better because Gertrude didn't give up on me." "Dad, don't talk about leaving," little Gertrude protested. "Sweetheart, leaving is part of life. What matters is what we leave behind. Look at your great-grandma Margaret and Grandma Gertrude. They left long ago, but they are more alive than ever." "In every center," agreed Margaret. "In every act of love," added Daniel. "In every bus moment," little Gertrude chimed in. "In each of us," Emily concluded. They stayed there until late under the stars, in the square that honored the woman who changed destinies with wisdom and strong coffee. The years kept passing. The centers multiplied. The movement grew. But at the heart of it all remained the original simplicity, seeing people for who they are inside, not outside, serving without judgment, loving without conditions. David aged gracefully, his white hair matching his ever-present smile. Emily by his side, a partner in every adventure. Their children pursued different careers but were united by the same purpose, to make a difference. Margaret became a renowned music therapist, creating methodologies that blended art and social transformation. Daniel developed a technological platform that revolutionized volunteering in the country. Little Gertrude, true to her childhood dream, took the center's model to Africa, Asia, and Latin America. At 70, David still served breakfast at the original center. His hands trembled slightly, his back ached more, but his smile remained youthful. "Don't you ever get tired?" a new volunteer asked. "Of serving?" "Never. Every face is a story. Every story, a chance to make a difference." "You've made a difference in so many lives." "It wasn't me. It was Gertrude through me, Margaret through me. Everyone who taught me that true success is seeing someone smile because you helped." On a special morning, exactly 40 years after the encounter on the bus, David received an unexpected visitor. An elderly man leaning on a cane walked into the center. "Can I help you?" David approached. "You don't remember me, do you?" The man smiled. "It's been a long time. I was the bus conductor back then." David's eyes widened. The conductor? He had searched for him for years without success. "My God, Mr. Walter, I saw Mrs. Gertrude do what she did that day. It changed my life too." "How so?" "I was bitter, hated my job, treated passengers poorly, but seeing how she responded to your rudeness with love, I thought, if she can do that, I can be better. I changed, retired happily, raised my kids with love. Now I have wonderful grandchildren. I came to thank you." "Thank me, but I was terrible." "Exactly. You were the contrast we needed to see. Your transformation inspired mine. It's like Mrs. Gertrude said on that bus, sometimes we need to see the worst to choose the best." The two men embraced, moved. Another circle closing. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story of transformation and redemption. Do you believe in the power of words to change lives? Leave your like, subscribe, and share in the comments where you're watching from.